going to show you how to make a simple alcohol stove and stand tonight. From a prepper point of view, I think this is a very important skill to learn and to also teach others. This may, sometime in the future, in some emergency, make your life a little more comfortable, and it even may make someone else's life a little more comfortable. This particular design that I'm going to show you, I think, is the best design overall for ease of build, ease of use, efficiency, and cost. I do think that for the most part I could probably walk into anybody's house and find the materials to make this. Although I use, my special tools, which I'm about to show you, I could make this particular stove with just a thumbtack and a razor blade. Alcohol stoves have a lot of advantages, not only for the prepper but for any outdoorsman. They're extremely lightweight. This whole kit that I have in front of you weighs less than a few ounces. They're extremely simple, they're reliable, they're very quiet, odorless, there's zero maintenance, they're very safe compared to other stoves. The fuel is not very explosive, very low cost. The availability of fuel, though, is where it really shines with preppers. Just to name a few fuels, you can use denatured alcohol, which is my favorite, regular isopropyl or rubbing alcohol, heat, methanol. You can even use a high-octane booze with this. Whiskey, I've burnt whiskey in them, which I don't like to do, of course, I'd rather drink it. So the availability of fuels for these stoves are multi and they're readily accessible. You can get them anywhere. Like I said, I could walk into anybody's house, find the materials and the tools to make a stove like this and have the fuel available. I like them because they're do-it-yourself, of course, too. There are a few disadvantages to them, and I'm very familiar with the disadvantages. One thing, they're cold sensitive. If you're going out on a winter hike or a winter camp, extreme colds, I should say, can affect the alcohol. And the other problem with them is that their fuel puts out about half the output per ounce as petroleum-based fuels. But the way I look at it, there's a bonus to this with the fuel, because alcohol, unlike petroleum-based fuels, can sit on your shelf for a long time. They have a long shelf life. That's important to a prepper. So if you were planning long-term with this, you could stick a couple gallons of alcohol or however much you think you're going to need on the shelf, and I'm telling you that it'll at least be fresh and good for 6 years, if not 10 years. It's hard to get that in a petroleum fuel, so that's where it really shines with preppers. The other thing about alcohol, or having alcohol around, of course, are its other uses. You can use alcohol for a lot of things, but I'll just mention sterilizing medical instruments, and of course sterilizing wounds. It's painful, but you can do it with alcohol. It's a small skill to learn. It's actually fun doing it with your kids, though, but it would make a big impact in an emergency situation. Like I said, it may not just be for you, it may be for somebody else. You may be prepped out and be able to go off grid if you experience something like Sandy or Katrina or the Joplin tornadoes. But a lot of your neighbors and other people aren't going to be able to do that. And you've seen that in all those situations. This little kit, or being able to show them how to make one, or making them one, or giving one away to them, which would cost almost nothing, would change the whole experience. People went weeks without power in Katrina, weeks without power in Sandy. They had no way to cook food. Some people were, just trying to cook outside. That's not always possible where you are, and even considering the weather situation, if it's raining or it's windy. This little alcohol stove can be run inside without any worries of odors or toxic chemicals building up. People were bringing grills inside the house, poisoning themselves, when just a little bit of skill is going to change your whole scenario. So let's say there's a big emergency and you're able to walk into somebody's house. Even if you don't have one to give away or help them out, you can find all these materials easily in their house and make them one, and they probably have fuel on hand they don't even know about. Prepping can be very inexpensive. This is a very powerful skill, very powerful tool that could go a long way in an emergency situation. If you add a 4-pound bag of rice to that and give that to a friend in need, and it's going to change everything about how they're going to experience it. It makes a great giveaway. You don't have to take this necessarily, let's say I'm going to use myself, to my level. Not a lot of people want to take prepping to my level, and that's okay. This is, the way I kind of live. I like this lifestyle, but if you're just doing a few things to be ready, this small skill could make a big difference. And then you can teach other people how to do it as well. The material list to build the stove and stand is pretty simplistic. In fact, I have all this stuff just laying around in the house. Some stove wire, 1/8 inch steel rod, 7.5 ounce Coke can, and this is optional, but I really recommend it. Some high temp silicone caulk or gasket material. And the tools needed, of course, can vary, but this is what I have found to make it the easiest. My Dremel and some abrasive sanding bits, a good box cutter, pair of pliers, a Sharpie, some scissors capable of cutting aluminum, a good clamp, razor blades, and a measuring device of some kind, straight edge. First thing I'm going to do is mark the holes in my can and then drill them. And I'm going to show this in the order that I recommend it, because there's a method to the madness in the order that the steps that I take to make this stove. It's important that you drill the holes and cut the cap out first before you corrupt the integrity or the strength of the can. Once you start cutting into the can, it's really hard to drill the holes or cut out the top. So mark your holes first, and even the place where you mark them will have some bearing on the efficiency of your stove. Too high up next to the rim or too low down on the lip below will affect your primer time. What you want to do, what I have found, is that you want to put the holes right where the lip ends and starts to go vertical. So right about there. And I just eyeball it like I do everything else, and it seems to work out just fine. There we go, 16 holes. If you don't have a Dremel to drill the holes, I don't recommend a regular drill, a hand drill. I would recommend maybe getting a hobby drill, one of those finger drills that look like a thimble that you can stick a drill bit into and then do it by hand. A hand drill is just too clumsy. The Dremel really shines for little projects like this. When you're done, it should look something like that, 16 holes. Next step is to cut out the top, and you want to score. You don't want to cut. You don't want to use this like a can opener. You want to gently score around that inside crevice on the top of the can. Take your time. Again, you don't want to puncture it through prematurely. What you want is to score it enough times around that crevice for it to almost in approximately 2 or 3 minutes. I've scored around enough the top that it's starting to come out. You just take your tab and weaken it further by working it back and forth here. It's going to be jagged in some areas, but we can clean that up with the Dremel real nice. I use a little grinding stone bit for this part. I got rid of any jagged or uneven edges with the stone grinder, and then I use a finishing abrasive bit just to kind of dress it up, because I like a nice finished look. You don't have to do this, but I like a nice finished look. Especially on the inside, just to get rid of any burrs around those jets. Now it's time to cut the top off, and I do recommend cutting the top off first. It's just easier. I made a jig with my clamp, a razor blade, and a 1-inch square steel tube. And you could use, a marker and some scissors for this, but I just think it's a lot nicer finish, and it cuts so much cleaner and even this way. So again, just using the score method, you just keep going around until it weakens it enough that it separates. Once you've scored it around enough, you can actually start pressing on the sides, and if it's broken through, it'll just start to separate like that. And you've got a perfectly cut 1-inch top. For the bottom, we're going to do the same thing, and I just searched around in my garage till I found a exactly 3/4 inch vibration pad, and then I hooked the jig up, the clamp, and the razor, and I'll do the same thing to the bottom. I'll just score around until I weaken it enough to cut through. So now I've got my 1-inch top and my 3/4 inch bottom, and I've got this flashing that I'm going to use to make the inner wall to help vaporize that alcohol. I like to rough up the bottom edge of this because that's where I'm going to put that gasket material as well. Let's make the flashing. So I took that flashing and I marked off a 1-inch strip with my straight edge, and then I just take my razor and score down that piece of flashing. And it'll break right off. That's kind of hard to show with one hand, but you get the idea, right? I use the straight edge, cut a 1-inch strip of flashing. That's going to be our inner wall for the stove itself. Then take your flashing in the bottom of your stove and line it up in there as best you can. Get it as perfect as you can, but not too tight. If it's too tight, it's not going to fit into the top of the can. I'll show you that in a minute, but you want it to be as perfect as you can get it. And that looks pretty good to me. And just take it out. I used several different methods, including JB Weld, to hold this flashing in place. But the best way that I've found is actually using a stapler. And just put a staple on one side, connecting the two. Like that. Perfect. And then just bend it in to match, the rest of the circle. And you got it. That's all you need. And then to prepare your bottom, you're basically going to make an inverted bottle cap, twisting a little bit and in, and holding your thumb against it. And just go around, do that about a 1/4 inch in succession, all the way around the can. Perfect. Now I'll put that gasket material on. And again, this is optional, but what this is good for, the stove is going to run without it, but what this is good for is that if you do move your stove around, even if it's by accident, it will not spill over onto the table through the crevice that connects the two parts. So put in your flashing, staple side down, and then we're going to connect these two. Have some paper towels ready because you'll need it for the excess gasket crap. And so the first thing, if we've done our job going around, it's not ever easy, but you should be able to get it together like that. And then this is the crucial part. You can ruin this whole thing with too much strength on this. Just carefully holding the ends, bring this down over. Carefully, even slowly stretching it out. And just, you can feel it when it hits that lip. You also want to make sure at the same time that that flashing is going underneath that lip on top. This is where, right at the end you can really break this thing and crush the flashing or crush the stove itself if you're not going to do this slowly. Now when you get it down to the lip, you know you're home if your measurements were right. If the top was 1 inch and the bottom was 3/4 and the flashing was 1 inch, this should all fit together nicely. Then just wipe away the excess gasket material. Okay, the last crucial steps to complete the stove make a big difference. Go around with your finger on the inner side of that flashing, pressing towards the outer wall. And then make sure these two are clamped together as tight as they can. You want that inner flashing to fit up into that crevice best as possible. When you've done that, take something like plastic soft and go around the inside, around that lip. And what you're doing is stretching that flange out to meet the flashing. Just go around like that, or even like this, pressing inward. That'll help bring that flange to the flashing itself, the inner flashing, just to seal it up. It works good to do that on this end as well. It kind of crimps it so it meets the bottom and crimps onto the bottom. I've always found that the Sharpie works well for this. And it seals it up nice. And then of course I'll finish up with a little more polishing with the Dremel just to give it a nice store-bought look. There you go. There's the finished product. Looks great. Pretty easy. I mean, it probably took me less than 20 minutes to do this in real life. One thing I want to point out to you guys when you're watching other stove instructions, a lot of guys tell you to cut small holes or indents into the bottom of the flashing. Don't do that. You're actually defeating the purpose and making your stove less efficient that way. You're not gonna achieve an airtight seal there. You don't have to put those notches in, but by doing that, you decrease your vaporization time. Now the stand is super easy. Take your steel rod and line it up against your ruler, and then use these numbers and make marks appropriately at 1/2 inch, and then at the 3.5, and then at the 7, and then at the 10, and then 10.5, and then cut it off there. Take a second rod and basically do the same thing. 1/2, 3.5, 7, and then 10. So you got 2 rods, same measurements, and do them at the same time, otherwise you'll never get them right. Take your 2 rods, put them in the vise at the same time, and using a rubber mallet, make your angles, and then just go all the way around like that, matching up those lines on both rods. If you do them at the same time, they will come out the same. It's pretty easy. And when you're done, you can see the makings of your tripod. So we're going to make the hinge out of wire. I like to put it back in the vise for this so I can wrap it. And take about about 15 inches of wire. When you're done wrapping it up, just again pinch it off with the pliers. And you've got a pretty nice tripod. Very stable. It'll hold your stove and your cup. And it folds down to go in your pocket if you want it to. It weighs about 1 ounce. ounce and a half maybe. Okay, the unwritten rules of the test is usually 2 cups of water, and how much time and how much fuel does it take to boil those 2 cups of water. Let's use 1 ounce of alcohol. That's 1 ounce. See how long it takes to prime itself. There's the jets, and there's primed. 24 seconds. Let's put the water on, and this is room temperature water. It's been sitting out for a couple hours, so it's probably, I'm guessing 70 degrees. At 3 minutes, we got a lot of noise in here. I've got bubbles starting already, but I'm not going to count it till it's a full rolling boil. 3 minutes and 33 seconds. That's a full rolling boil. I might have even been a little late there. Now let's see how much cooking time I've got. This is where we can turn this into a pressurized stove. Let's start. Clear this, start this again. We'll see how long we can cook with 1 ounce of fuel. So we've got primed in less than 30 seconds. We've got 2 cups of water boiling in less than 4 minutes. And now we'll see how long we can cook on just that 1 ounce. That's another reason why I really like these small Coke cans, because they sit directly underneath the camping style pots better. Whereas the bigger Coke cans and bigger pop cans, they're too big. They waste a lot of heat going off the side. 4 minutes. Still cooking away. 5 minutes. Still cooking away. It's unbelievable. 10 full minutes of heating time. I've got a good 6 minutes of cook time after boiling. Flame out, boil stop at 7 minutes. I've used a lot of stoves. I've spent a lot of time, cooking food out there, and I've never found another stove in this class, of its class, comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, that even comes close to the specs of this stove. And for how simple it is to make, it's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what to say. You can clap now.